Thank you, Dave. I'm super excited to share this new company that I started. Um, and I'm really just on a mission, really, because I the whole goal is I want to level up every wholesaler. I picked on wholesalers big time last night, by the way. I did a different speaking event over at Rich Grove's thing at Max Bar and Grill, and there's a lot of wholesalers there. So a lot of them are interested in my services, and I'm hoping that we'll start getting some better photos from those wholesalers, because who relies on good photos? Investors and agents, right? How impossible is it for you guys to sell these properties when you don't have good photos to work with, or you don't have a good evaluation from these wholesalers? So I'm on a mission to help anyone who's interested in getting into the investment side of real estate and learning how to properly walk and evaluate these properties. So a little bit about me. I am a licensed agent, and the last month I moved my license over to Cashflow Nation. He's brought me in as his disposition manager, and like I mentioned, that was like a kind of a strategic move because I was building this company in the background. I was looking to join a team that was focused solely on investment properties, so I was super excited to make that connection with Dave and his team and help him build out some of that stuff. But a little bit me on the personal side, I got into real estate with the goal of just trying to live for free. So prior to being in real estate, I was working as an event planner for a national nonprofit. We were planning like 21 special events a year, from like Cycle for Life, golf, galas, all sorts of stuff. I ran a lot of their auctions, worked in operations. So I kind of understand like the level of detail that needs to go behind things to make things successful on the outside. But yeah, I bought my first duplex in 2019, and then COVID hit and I lost my daytime job. I was obsolete. I lost all my jobs, in fact, because I was like a part-time bartender on the side. So I was really lost. I didn't know what to do. And the one thing that saved me was that duplex, because the front side, when I purchased it, had a tenant inside that paid the entire mortgage PITI. So I was really only just paying my portion of the utilities on my half. But I was also running Airbnb out of that while I was on vacation on my unit. So it was already like cute listed on Airbnb. But what happened during COVID was I got a surge of the same day, Friday the 13th, I'll never forget that, 2020. I walked into work, was handed all my last paychecks, and it was very devastating. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So they had a 2-week quarantine. I moved back in with my family. I was like, Mom, Dad, sisters, I just didn't know what was going on, lived by myself. And so I moved out, listed that thing on Airbnb and opened it up for 2 weeks. But to my surprise, I got a surge of like many people trying to move out of hotels that were shared ductwork and things like that. So I got somebody that wanted to stay for 13 weeks, like a 3-month stay. And they were paying triple what the person was paying on the back end. And I never looked back ever since. So that's what kickstarted me into wanting to do more of that. And I was like, well, how can I learn to buy like the pros? Well, I'm a big fan of earning while you learn. I think Dave's team's, a good way to do that too, is you can learn a lot about the investment side of real estate and earn while you learn. I think that's the best way. So I went and looked to be a house buyer for these house buyer companies in town. And the first one that I got hired with was Core Properties. Many of you guys know who they are. They're a well-oiled machine in terms of training and doing property walks. So I think my first week I got 3 contracts. It was awesome. I just took off in it. I was so excited. Pretty consistently, I was purchasing around 6 to 12 properties a month for them. I did that around 7 months, and then I moved over to another group where I was working in multifamily acquisitions. So what they did was they were buying and selling 2s and 4s, like 2 families and 4 families. We were looking for properties that were physically distressed or financially distressed, okay? And most of them were a combination of both. So we would take those on, get the tenants out. We would replace the roofs, replace the sewer laterals. Those were the 2 big things that would oftentimes fall out on contracts. So we would swoop in, get it cheap, and pretty much fix all the issues, and then pump out a new product with 1 unit open for an owner occupant that would be able to help them house hack those more smaller residential ones. But when we would sell those, we would look to do 1031 exchanges into larger assets. So for that same group. It's 1904 group. I don't know if you guys know Jared Holst or not, but he's really, he's an attorney. He's also a agent. So he's a really awesome, talented guy to learn from. I felt like I got like a PhD in multifamily working for them. But yeah, so we were analyzing these larger properties and doing 1031 exchanges into them. I think nowadays they're buying like 120 units at a time. They don't even look at stuff that's smaller. But so in that process, I have walked a lot of properties. But the last group that I worked for was like I would call it like a privately held hedge fund. They were based out of Reno. Actually, Ryan worked with me over there. That's how I got to meet him and know him. He's an awesome resource in terms of walking properties with you and giving you a rehab bid, because I would call him every time that I was like, what do you think about this foundation? I'm not really sure. So I learned a lot from him in the field, because I just wanted to really dial in my offer price to accommodate those repairs. And yeah, so towards the end of working for that group, they said, stop buying. We have 350 properties in our portfolio that are not producing any income, and we aren't sure why. I was like, you aren't sure why? That's not good. So luckily I was still being paid a salary, but I wasn't going to be making, you know, the other half of my income, which was purely commission from purchasing. So I read this book that same day called Who Moved My Cheese? Have you guys ever read that book? It's literally like, you can read it in 4 hours. It was the best. And then I was like, oh. And so it's basically about pivoting when you get handed something like kind of crappy that happens to you, or, you know, it's not ideal. And I was like, well, you know, at that time for that fund, I was actually purchasing from a ton of wholesalers, and I was also purchasing right off the MLS. And I was like, well, you know, so when people would learn where I worked at meetups, I had to be kind of quiet about it, especially with wholesalers, because they all wanted my email. And then every morning I would wake up with 20 emails from these wholesalers. I would say about 2 of the 20 emails were even worth looking at. That's how I know how bad this situation is with these fly-by-night wholesalers coming out of nowhere, or newbie investors and agents as well. But they're just not doing some very basic things correctly that could make them so much more successful. So I got on Facebook. I went to St. Louis Real Estate Investing, the Facebook group with like 40,000 people on it. And I said, wholesalers, I want to buy more from you, but you're not taking photos very well. You're not evaluating properties very well. You don't even know what you're looking at while you're there. I want to put you in the car with me, or come to these properties with me, because I had 350 vacant ones to walk, and I organized them by zip code. I use this app called Straightaway. It's like a little purple app. If you ever look for it, you can enter in like 17 properties and 63116 and optimize the route, and it'll bring up like, you know, 1 through 17. And so I posted that on St. Louis Real Estate Investing, and I said, I'm going to be in 63136 on Monday starting at 9 a.m. I'm going to meet at the Schnucks or wherever. If you guys want to walk and learn how to take photos so we can buy more from you, I would love that. To my surprise, I had like 8 and 9 cars following me throughout the day. And I would just give them my phone number, and I'd say, they would come and go, and I'd say, hey, we're at property 3, we're heading to property 4. We'll be there in about 15 minutes. So it was really cool. We had so much fun. I did several days of that. And everyone was like, you need a bus. You need to be charging for this. This was so fun. And I laughed then. But, you know, then I later was just like, I call it the STL Property Walks experiment. That started happening at the end of 2022. And we were pretty much just walking those funds. So these are some of the people that were joining me throughout those days that I was on the streets. You might know quite a few of them. Some of them are pretty good wholesalers. So yeah, it's just a good way to build rapport with people and get to know, like, and trust people that you might potentially want to work with. But unfortunately, at the end of 2022, they let everybody go at that company. That should be no surprise, right? I was pretty much going around taking photos and ranking them from 1 to 10 on all the systems and where I thought they were. You know, is it rent ready and it should have been in property management, or did it go to property management and then it got flagged on inspection and it got kicked back to construction? There was a lot of miscommunication between construction and property management, and acquisitions was its whole own wing. So I didn't even, after I bought it, I didn't even know what happened with it. But I later found out that they really weren't getting work done. They were sitting vacant, and they weren't getting tenants moved in. So that wasn't a good place for the fund to be. But then, in 2024, so in 2023, I just kind of, 2024 last year, I created social media handles for this. It was just at STL Property Walks. I created a Facebook group and I started organizing these. And I think I was like, I came to a few meetups and I was like, hey, would anyone like want to join me for a day for $100? And like, I had like 20 hands roll up. So I say 2024 is when STL Property Walks was born. But I just think it's the only real estate service, training, and consulting company focused on all the things that you cannot learn online, in a book, on a podcast, YouTube. Nothing will replace walking properties and using all 5 senses. So when I first started STL Property Walks, I really thought that I was just going to be starting a training company for like field training. But what surprised me and what has changed a lot in the last 2 weeks since I went live with my website was trusted service partner, and I'm really having a lot of fun with it. And I think it could help us all feed more deals into Cash Flow Nation for potential disposition. Who I've been of most value to recently is these out-of-state wholesalers from New York or California. I'm talking them into letting me join them on their appointments just as their photo taker or inspector, whatever you want to call me. I'll be your assistant. I don't talk. I know it's your relationship to manage. So I'm just eyes and ears and all 5 senses along the way, assessing and gathering information, and they really have no idea that that's what I'm doing. So it's actually pretty cool. I just look like another team member on these wholesalers' teams. But what I learned from starting all this was, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this core of learning pyramid, but I love it. Because just like, when we get into investing, there's passive ways of investing, right? Like cash flow from a property. But there's also active ways of investing, like flipping or wholesaling, right? But it still kind of breaks down into 2 layers. There's passive learning methods and there's active learning methods. But what was really eye-opening to me is look how much you remember. After 2 weeks, we tend to remember 10% of what we read. I'm like, why am I reading so much? If I'm only going to remember 10% of it, it's crazy. 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see. So this is really discouraging for me. Up here, you guys are only going to remember 5 to 10 or 15% of what I say. It doesn't even really matter, right? And maybe 50% of what we see and hear. So you might remember 50% of this presentation, but where the real learning happens is out in the field. I want you to like I think the best learning is get away from the spreadsheets, away from Google, away from everything, and just get into the field, start walking. And so I'm going to take a little trip back to 2019 with me, what I looked like. This was me when I got a little bug that I wanted to be a real estate investor. I was going to about 5 real estate meetups a month to network with people who were doing it, which was really good. I was laying in bed at night, hearting all these properties on Zillow, running Zillow calculator. How can I house hack this? How can I make this a rental? But you know what I wasn't doing? I wasn't walking properties, right? And then in turn, how many offers was I making? None, like 0 to none. Or like I was making a verbal offer. Would you take, So analysis paralysis is a real thing. And and then since this one's more focused on agents, I just wanted to make some important distinctions. When it comes to being an agent, there's a big difference between a retail residential agent who's shopping for people who are looking for owner-occupied properties versus shopping for stuff that is meant to be an investment, right? Those are 2 different things. And the big distinction is that retail is oftentimes, it's clean, safe, functional. It's already passed building inspections. It's already passed occupancy inspection. Ideally, it's generally turnkey and pretty move-in ready, right? And then there really is no investment criteria behind that at all. It's just a couple that has 2 W-2 jobs, and they say you qualify for $350,000 purchase, and then they go shopping. There's no investment criteria behind it. It's actually more of a liability for them if they were to lose their jobs. How are you going to pay that mortgage? And then on top of that, they also are using an agent They're getting to do full-on inspections and pick that thing apart and then also negotiate those, right? But when we as agents want to switch over to the investment side of real estate, completely different. It requires a trained eye for this stuff, guys. And if you don't have a trained eye, I don't think you should be doing it, because how can you call yourself a fiduciary for somebody if you don't really know what you're looking at? And most don't. Most agents are actually relying on that full inspection report. And then they're going to go through and comb through the inspection report and get a few, they might, if they have contacts, if they have contacts to get you a roof bid that's reasonable, if they have contacts to get you a sewer lateral guy to like fix it, but a lot of retail agents don't have those things. How do I know that? I used to negotiate against them all the time. And I would get 3 bids on something and I only showed them the high one. They'd have to bring their low one if they wanted to go any lower than, if I get 3 roof bids, one's 12 grand, one's 10 grand, one's 7 grand, I'm not showing them 7 grand, I'm showing them 12, unless you got somebody who's gonna, I'm like, work for your client, but most of them don't. I've bought hundreds of properties from agents on the market, as is cash offers, and most of them aren't armed with this information. So if you guys are, it's going to differentiate you from everybody else in the market. But going back to these investor properties, they're dirty. They're often not safe. Do you know what an unsafe property looks like? Do you have a trained eye, ears, nose, and do you have that sixth sense, I'll call it? A lot of the times these properties aren't functional and they need to be brought back up to that municipality's building codes and occupancy. Do you know what's required to do that? Most agents don't, unless they're an investor themselves and they've been through the process, right? So those are a lot of things that I focus on when I'm out in the field and training your eyes on what to look for. But on top of that, when you're buying investment property, it actually has to have some kind of investment criteria, right? It's not this retail W-2 American dream thing. I want to put a swing set out back and make memories. We want this thing to actually make money, right? So what does that look like? It either has to have, we can have wholesale potential, but mostly we're talking about flip potential, and we're talking about, can I keep this thing and will it pay for itself? That's completely different than retail agent work. But yeah, and then on top of that, oftentimes there is no inspection. And it requires a trained eye. And there's so many wholesalers out there that are charging 5 grand, 7 grand, non-refundable, no contingencies, no inspections. I don't encourage anybody to work with people like that, just because, they think they have this power over you, and a lot of times you're putting yourself in a bad position, especially if you don't have a trained eye. So I don't tell anybody to put non-refundable money down. Industry standard is 1% of the purchase price. Now, I don't really have an issue with wholesalers that are willing to let you do some due diligence, and maybe they want like a couple grand, because what if you back out, and then their time's up with the seller, and then they're not going to get to wholesale that deal. It's a lost opportunity for them too. So if you were to back out of that after you found out that the roof and the sewer lateral are bad, the stuff you couldn't see, then it's like, hey, at least the wholesaler got 2 or 3 grand, and non-refundable earnest money is just a whole thing. You should be very, very sure that you're going to go through with something if you're writing non-refundable earnest money offers, period. So yeah, it's just important to have that trained eye if you're going to be making offers. I've made offers on these 5 grand non-refundable ones before, but only because I have a trained eye, right? And I built in the what ifs into the rehab budget. So but then in comes Property Walks 101. So I created an opportunity for investors, agents or wholesalers, anybody who's interested in learning to train their skills out in the field. And this is what's included in it. Pretty much we're going to walk anywhere from 3 to 5 properties, and we're looking at the whole thing. And we're going to go over, I start on the outside of the home, and we really focus on going over the systems, the HVAC, the electrical, the windows, all sorts of stuff. I teach you basic photography skills. This is probably the most valuable portion of this entire thing. It's also the easiest. You guys shouldn't be messing this up. 101, like okay, here's my basic 101. Can you wipe your lens before you take 100 photos? It might help. It's as simple as that. And then I can kind of teach you, like, how to zoom out on your photos. I zoom out 0.5 on everything, so we get the whole house, the whole corner of the house. It's just little things that I can teach you that are going to go a long way, and you're going to have a lot of success. Essential gear. Okay, so I brought this little tackle box of fun things that I'll show you what I keep in my car. Okay, because I'm like super a nerd about this. When you walk this many properties, you might as well be good at it, right? You got to do it 350 times. Let's just be good at what we do. It's very simple. Okay, I start with this. Now, I hiked with this with a gal, Melanie Tucci, really good friend. She runs a company called Travelite. This was my hiking stick. I walked 50 miles with this in Columbia, Lost City Trek. But aside from that, now it's my property walk stick. So I don't have an example in here, but if we had drop-down tiles, I pop them up, move them over. Ha, knob and tube, there's a negotiation, okay? I do that in basements, I do it everywhere. Also, cobwebs. I hate cobwebs, so this is my cobweb stick. I tell everyone, just find a stick in the yard, whatever you can find, but that's what I do. I walked a property that was only supposedly vacant for 3 months last year, and it was the weirdest thing. I was like, they must have a spider infestation because it was the main floor, and it was everywhere. It was like Halloween. And I was like, what is happening? And I got this thing out and I was like, have you been there in a while? Like, it was like a horror movie. It was really weird. So I'm very thankful for this stick. It's gotten me through a lot of walks. There's the stick. Okay, why would I have this in my car? Bathroom. Okay, so when you walk a lot of properties, sometimes you gotta go. I'm not proud of it. But this is for opening up the back of the toilet, pouring this in the back, so that way you can flush it, okay? Don't do that on winterized properties, but, why would I have this? Emergencies, guys. You'll thank me later. If we're ever on the go, you'll thank me later. Okay, I'm big on this. If you guys don't have a good flashlight in your car, you're not doing it right. Go to Walmart and look for the crystal ball, okay? It has to have the crystal ball. Because, look, when I'm in basements, look how big I'm covering. Look at that. Like, I can get the whole basement wall in my photos. No one's doing that. They're all, like, awful photos. But what I also like about it is make sure you get the one that goes like this and makes a skinny beam. Look at this. I can look all the way up a stack and tell whether it's PVC all the way up, okay? So it's really cool to have a really nice flashlight. Spend like 25 bucks on it. Get as many lumens as you can. This one's 2,500. I like this one. I like a good heavy one, because if I were to run up on somebody, bam! I know I can hit them with it, and it's gonna, so you can pass that around. You gotta think about that as a female in the field. You do. I've been sent a lot of places that I wish I wasn't. Yeah, but you could beat someone with that, and I know that, okay? So you got to build that in if you're a female in the field. Why would I have marbles? Marbles, golf balls, whatever you want. Golf balls, I think the little divots aren't helping you. No, I put it on the floor. Yeah, we can see if it's level. And I take videos of that and I'll send it to the seller and be like, look how unlevel that is. And they're like, oh man, negotiation. All right. What else do I have in here? Measuring tape. Great for photos, especially cracks. I'll be like, you got a 1-inch crack right there, and I'll put that in the photo. Kind of cool. This thing is a whippersnapper, $4.95, and it sliced me the other day. So I upgraded to a laser measurer, okay? I have never used this. I just got it on Amazon the other day. I got to train myself on that. I got a few clients that are Section 8 only, and they're very big on knowing their square footage, especially when they're trying to add a third or fourth bedroom. They're like, is there enough square footage for me to add 70 square feet for occupancy of 1, 120 square feet, occupancy of 2, 220 square feet, occupants of 3. These are questions I'm being asked. And I hate that measuring tape. I don't like it. You guys would laugh at me when I'm out measuring because I was like, this is not a service I offer. Because they had it all staged. I was hooking my tape on the edge of the stove, and I was like trying not to knock all this glassware and stuff over, and I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, get a laser. N95. This is for like the doggy poopy, very like, there's some disgusting houses out there. You'll thank yourself later. Headlamp, like that. Pepper spray. This is a good one to keep pepper spray on you. All right, I need a volunteer for this one. All right. Hand sanitizer. I'm like big on this. I have shoes I don't even want to walk in the house in anymore. I just leave them on my front porch. A hat, extra batteries, and yeah, that's pretty much all I got in here. But see how that's different from what everybody else is probably doing? So a little more thorough, right? If you're gonna do a simple thing like walk a property, why not do it better than the rest? Okay. And then also, if you go on one of my walks, then you'll also get access to free resources for helping find sellers' information. Say you're driving for dollars, I can help you find the owner, all free. Vendor recommendations, like just mainly for your due diligence, like if you want a good sewer lateral guy in North County versus South City. And then also at the end of every one of our walks, we pick one property to really dive deep on the numbers. Does this make sense? What is the rehab budget if we were just to make it clean, safe, functional rental? What is the rehab budget if I were to flip it? Two different scopes of work, right? And then I think what people like the most is that Burr pro forma Excel spreadsheet that I give for estimating your rehab costs, because you can use it over and over again. Okay, and then overarching, what we work on, I think Property Walk starts way before you get to the property. It starts several blocks before you get to the property. It starts with circling the property. Did you drive down the alley before you parked out front? Because you probably should. I refer to a lot of properties as it's kind of like a mullet. Business in the front, party's really always in the back. So, because neighbors are quick to flag front yard trash, but they leave people's backyards alone. So if you're ever driving for dollars, go down the alleys. You're gonna get way better leads. And we're looking at school district, looking at like what neighborhood we're in, street, parking, alley. Are we by the railroad tracks? Are we in a flood zone? So we work on those things. And I really just teach a top to bottom investigative approach. So when I'm walking a property, I walk them all the same. I would just make a circle around them, and I'm looking for signs and symptoms of potential issues that I might find inside the home. Oftentimes they do transfer. So when I'm looking at this particular property, what do you guys see when you're looking at it? Roof. I would actually start before the roof. I would start at looking at the power lines and the tree limbs before, what could fall on the roof, what has already fallen on the roof. We're looking at roof condition. You guys see anything else? I'm gonna get my pointer stick out. This is also good for presentations. All right, the electric meter is missing, okay? But what I do like about this one is that I see the meter mast. See this? Meter mast is going through the soffit and out the roof. That tells me that at some point, at least the meter mast has been replaced, and likely they don't ever replace the meter mast unless they replace the panel on the inside too. So I might expect this one to not have knob and tube in the very least. And I know that the grading on this isn't like really sharp, but there's some shingles that are starting to come up, which means you probably got some nail pops going on. What else do you guys see? There's a missing window, it's boarded up. These are also older wooden window style, okay? Yeah, the big tree could totally fall on that whole thing. Insurance gal, she's watching. Yeah, we got older wood windows. So the bad thing about older wood windows is if this thing doesn't have central air, then you're opening that up and down every season, and it's probably breaking in and it needs new windows. Also, did you guys see this? This looks like it's a cinder block foundation, but we got a little very stereotypical stair step one happening here. So when I'm down in the basement, I'm probably gonna be looking like, at least it's under the porch, or if it's under like a porch or a garage, it's not as big of a deal, but if it's underneath the house, you're probably gonna feel that on the inside, and I would expect to feel that on the inside. So these are all things that I train your eye on in the field. And here's a case study. Okay, so I had an agent who had been an agent for 5 years, and they're not a rehabber or a landlord. I highly suggest if you're gonna hire an agent to help you find investment property, find an agent who owns investment property. Find an agent who flips currently, because they know way more than the average agent, okay? But I got sent this little 1 bed, 1 bath, you know, it was listed at 46, little brick home over there in 63116, was that Bevo Mills? Yeah. And so that sat on the market for maybe like 30 or 60 days. Then I get on one of those Facebook groups, and I see this Jorge guy. He's a wholesaler. And he posts the same property for $1 grand less. And I was like, what's this guy doing? You know, I'm going to go walk this and figure out what's going on. But a red flag for me immediately was on his ad, he said, new roof installed. That's what that little flag is. I know the print is not very readable. But when I looked at this, I was like, well, if they did get a new roof, they got the cheapest roofer possible, because that roofer didn't even bother replacing that fascia. Here, it's missing the metal that protects the wood. And then when I walked around the side, it has green gutters still. So those are from like 1950. And I was like, well, did they really replace this roof? If they probably did the roof themselves, or definitely has no warranty on it, right? So probably not the best roof. But what was more interesting was when I walked it. That little brick house was not even brick. It was actually wood underneath. But there's another one. Do you guys see what's missing in this photo? Anyone? She's got it. Yeah, the air conditioner. But, well, what most people notice is that the electric meter is missing, and but the AC condenser is missing. There's the little power box, and they always clip off the Romex like power supply, and then they will clip off the copper. And so I took 5 groups to this property, like 5 different property walks groups. And I said, what do you guys think of this one? And they were like, well, aside from it not being brick, it looks pretty good. And, well, is that like metal thing supposed to have something? And I was like, that's your electric meter. You know, and some of these people were agents. It's very scary, okay? It's a scary world out there, people trying to help investors. And I was like, do you guys see anything else? They're like, no, it looks pretty good. 5 groups, you guys, 5. And I said, you just missed $5,000 of your rehab budget, and you're helping people invest? Cool. And I said, not only that, you probably actually are missing 10 grand, and I'll show you why when we get on the inside. And they were like, oh my gosh, you know? So if you don't have a trained eye for this stuff, it's concerning, okay? Next. Now, this is the photo the wholesaler sent me. Cool, doesn't look too bad, right? These are my photos. I walked around the dang back of the thing, and it's hidden behind the wall. It was actually kind of tucked away. What you can't see is there was a concrete wall right here. I had to kind of get a good angle. But that AC coil is completely missing. And of course, all the plumbing is missing from that furnace. But ask the wholesaler, looks pretty good, doesn't it? No. Then that same hot water heater, look at that, missing the hot and cold supply there. So the entire plumbing was missing from this whole house. Now how much has your rehab budget gone up? Now you've got to replace all of the plumbing lines, and likely your water service line. Woo! We just went up to 15, almost 20 grand. Now, if you're an experienced investor doing volume, you can get a lot better pricing. But I don't ever sell people on that type of pricing, because most people that we're talking to who are, you know, working with an agent are not as experienced. They're probably paying closer to retail prices for these repairs. And then, yeah, I think that was all to kind of show you on that one. How am I doing on time? All right, we got like 5 minutes. But yeah, this is just me just trying to reiterate that you really need to be educated if you plan to buy wholesale properties, especially, or any properties off market, especially as agents, because if you don't have this knowledge, you're not servicing your clients. You're really not. You're not doing them a service. And it's really not recommended to ever forego property inspections. If you can get them, you should always do them. In the very least, get a sewer lateral inspection, okay? Because roofs, at least pitch roofs we can see, flat roofs we can't. Costs you nothing to throw a roofer up on a flat roof and give you a bid. Go ahead and do it. I mean, you should ask for permission, but sometimes I don't. Like, I'm just like, can you get there over the weekend? I want to put an offer in. And they're like, yeah. And they're like, okay. And they'll let me know. And sometimes I share those bids with whoever's selling it, whether it's an agent or whatever. I'm like, hey, I had a roofer up there. Here's the pictures. It needs a new roof. And they're like, oh, crap. And so you can do a deal really quick that way. But yeah, as you can see, this was a fun, poopy, messy house to go through. But if you don't have a trained eye, this is somebody who tried to fix a rotted subfloor, probably that wax seal underneath the toilet. Those always dry up and go bad, and then they start leaking through your subfloor. Well, they just threw another piece of subfloor over the top, threw the toilet right back on top. No problem, right? But if you didn't have a trained eye, then you wouldn't have noticed that this was a sink, and it's also missing the plumbing supply and the drain there, okay? So that's a lot of what I teach, is just going through all the major systems. And when you're armed with this type of knowledge, it's a lot less risk, okay? Way less risk. So while I might put an offer in on a non-refundable 5K earnest money something, it's because I have this information and it still makes sense to me. I've built all the what ifs into the bid or the offer. But if you don't have this foundational knowledge, you really shouldn't be buying wholesale properties or selling them. And I'm pretty opinionated about that because drop contracts are not a good look for anyone, not you as an agent, not you as a wholesaler or an investor. It's crappy. And if it's on the market, even worse. You just hurt that listing agent, you hurt the seller. It's not a great business strategy. So going back to that core learning, how do I know this works? Guys, because I piloted it over the last year, and 2024 speaks for itself. These are a lot of people that went on my property walks, and the coolest and most rewarding part about this entire thing is getting to see what they do after it. Because I learned that upping the number of properties we walked, getting off of YouTube, getting off of Zillow, and making dreams in your head, and podcasts, and driving, I did it all, okay? But what made the difference for me was starting to walk more properties. I started to walk them with more knowledge, and it increased my confidence. And then it upped the number of offers that I was making and the contracts I was winning. And not only that, it started working for everybody else. I have a couple people in here that are like some of my favorite stories. Little Miss Allie here, this is her at a duplex, all of us talking to her. These group tours always turn into like a mobile mastermind. And we're all coaching her because she had been looking for a house hack duplex for 10 months. And she's like, I'm just going to buy single family. And I was like, no, you need to go on a property walk. And she's like, no. And I was like, who's your agent that you're working with? Because they're not telling you what you need to know. You're not any more confident after walking 10 properties with your agent. And I was like, it's going to change for you. Get in the car with me. So she paid me. She got in the car with me. And guess what Allie started doing the very following week? She put in 4 offers on a property. She got 1 under contract, had to let it go. A lot of what I do sometimes is I spend more time talking people out of deals than I do into deals. Sometimes the best deal you'll ever do is the one you don't do. Do you want to lose 5K today on a non-refundable earnest money, or do you want to lose 20 grand tomorrow? So sometimes you have to have those difficult conversations with newer investors. This one's one of my faves. This gal Lisa. She went on one of my property walks. She booked a private one. And we went around and only walked duplexes for a whole day. And she brought 2 of her partners with her, and we had a great day on the streets. And what do I know? The following week, she's putting in offers very aggressively. She gets this one in Princeton Heights under contract. It was listed at 140. Her agent got it under contract at 115. They went through due diligence. She sent it to me because her agent didn't know how to negotiate. So I was like, well, it kind of sucks when people are always asking you for knowledge that their agent should have, but they just don't. So it happens frequently. But anyway, she ended up, I was like, you need to negotiate that. Like had it under contract at 115. I was like, you kind of need to get it around 60 to 70K. And she was like, how am I going to do that? And I tried to coach her and tell her how to do it, and even her agent didn't feel comfortable doing it. And I was like, all right, well then just drop the contract. So they dropped the contract. I went and walked it, and I made an offer on it the very next day, a cash offer, and full well knowing I was just going to wholesale it right back to her at the price that the hard money lender had said that they would do it for. And so my job was to just get it for under what the hard money lender would do for the purchase and the rehab needed. So unfortunately, another agent got to it before me, and they put it under contract for 90, but they had a two-week due diligence on it, or 3-week close. I was like, they ain't gonna close that. It's not locked up low enough, and I know it because I already got the feedback from the hard money lender. So I waited for it to drop the contract, and sure enough, it did. I walked it one more time. I got it under contract for $60,000, and I sold it back to her for $70,000. It was really cool, and she's still working on that one. It's awesome. It's like so rewarding to see people doing deals. I call myself the value finder. Like I can walk things and I can find bedrooms. I can find baths. I showed her where to move a wall to make it a 2-bedroom in the upstairs. So she's got a GC working on that, doing that. But yeah, all these people are out wholesaling. There's Ryan, there he is. He's in that picture right there. Him and his business partner and his daughter joined me for a day, and now I've wholesaled him some properties, and he's also my GC on another property. So it's just been a great way to create relationships and get to know people. And you never know where it'll lead, but where do we go from here? So I give 2 options. You can either join me for a day on the street. I do it half days or full days. I'll teach you everything I know in a 4 to 8 hours, as much as I can, but it's very repetitive. Once you have a trained eye, you could do this quicker and quicker. And I also just train street smarts with all of this kind of stuff. But the thing that has changed the most about STL Property Walks in the last 2 weeks was me launching my website and starting to tell a few people about it. And it was astonishing how busy I was in the last week or so. But when I say trusted service partner, anytime that if any one of you guys, whether you're representing a client or you're wanting to buy something for yourself, call me and invite me to the walkthrough with you. And I'll literally do what I do. I'll take 100+ photos. I'll do a whole video walkthrough. And I walk and talk on that thing. I'm like, I'll be like, we got tuck pointing needing here. Just spot, and I'll zoom in on it and back out. And it helps you create a scope of work of sorts. I could take all those photos and throw them into a PDF that looks very similar to an inspector's report. I used to do this at my old job and brought the idea to them, and they implemented it all over the country. So it was really cool. But it helps sell your wholesale deals too, when you can provide a little, more insight on its actual condition. And I've been creating disposition packages for wholesalers, so I can do your sales comps. I can find value, Let's run it with an ARV of a 3-bedroom. It's clear that this can be a 3-bedroom very easily. 1 egress window, and now we've got a 3-bedroom. Now your ARV just went up this much. I can do rent comps. That comes from MLS, Rent-A-Meter, Section 8. I also give you that rehab estimate pro forma, which people love because you pay for it one time and you can use it over and over and over again. It's just in Excel. I can do flood maps. Basically, I just create the whole disposition. So I want to do more of this. If you guys can refer me to any wholesalers or anyone who needs this service, it's very affordable. I literally undercut all of the crappy people who are doing it for crap, and I'm doing it for the same price as them as I'm trying to build this brand. So just for to give you an idea, 100+ photos and a full video walkthrough is $175. So, and I know how much these wholesalers are paying. They're paying about $200 because I ask them. I go, who did this crappy work? Because I could do it for the same price and it's going to be 50%, 100% better. And the feedback speaks for itself because now I got a lot of repeat clients, which is cool. So yeah. Other than that, if you don't want to join me on the street, which I highly suggest all of you do, because if you think that you can learn, we already learned how you actually learn. You learn by doing, right? And having those group discussions, and that's where the real learning's done. But other than that, I would love to be anyone's service partner and help you evaluate properties in the field. So that's what I got. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job. Awesome job.
Nice job. Give her one more hand.